Hello bookworms, welcome again to another book review here on the channel. My name is Andre if you don't know me, and if you don't, then you should definitely subscribe, like the content, and comment away what's your favorite book, just so that I know and we can talk about it. But moving on, today's another book review, first of a series. It's called Of Fire and Blood. So I just realized as I was editing this video that I spent the whole video saying Of Fire and Blood, when that's not the book I'm talking about. The book I'm talking about is Of Blood and Fire by Ryan Cahill. This is the problem of having two books that have almost identical names. Of Fire and Blood is the book from George R.R. Martin, but this is the review for Of Blood and Fire by Ryan Cahill. Let's pretend I said it right. This book was published in 2021, so it's quite recent, just 3 years ago, and it's an indie published book, which again is great to see because it's been going along with the Ride of the Fane, so it's becoming quite famous in the fantasy realm, and I'm glad to see because again, the more indie publishers become famous, the better, because they totally deserve due to all the effort they put in. Not that traditional publishers don't, but they also deserve some respect for that. This book is an epic fantasy series, which again, I'm very glad to be reading it because I read Wheel of Time, which is epic fantasy, but then there's that type of epic fantasy that involves dragons and elves and dwarves that I really love, similar to J.R.R. Tolkien and The Lord of the Rings, and so I was really craving for that, and this book kind of satisfied it. This is the first of a series. The series is called The Bound and the Broken, which I think it's predicted to have 5 books. 4 of them have been published already, and there's a lot of novellas or short stories in between each book and a prequel as well. So there's quite a few books for you to read if you want to, if you just want to follow the main series. So far there's 4. On Goodreads, this book has 9,000 ratings, which it's okay for an indie published book. It's gaining momentum at the moment, and the score it has, which is quite good, it's 4.13. So even though it doesn't have that many ratings, the score is quite high, and let's see if it matches the score I gave it or not. But before that, of course, we're going to go through the synopsis, so if you don't want to hear anything about this book, you're allergic to spoilers, just jump onto the time that the timestamp is saying, that is floating around, and you'll be jumping into the categories right away. Or if you want to know what this book is about, I'm going to read the synopsis, so stick around. Born in fire, tempered in blood, Etheria is a land divided by war and mistrust. The High Lords of the South squabble and fight, only kept in check by the Dragon Guard, of traders of a time long past, who served the Empire of the North. In the remote villages of southern Etheria, still reeling from the tragic loss of his brother, Callan Briar prepares for the proving, a test of courage and skill that not all survive. But when 3 strangers arrive in the village of Milltown with a secret they are willing to die for, Callan's word is ripped from under him and he is thrust headfirst into a war that has been raging for centuries. There is no prophecy. His coming was not foretold. He bleeds like any man, and bleed he will. Okay, back again, and like I said, we're gonna jump into the categories right away because we don't have any other ratings to review from previous books, so let's start with the plot. I feel like for a first book, the plot is good, it's quite promising, it establishes a lot of things that have potential to happen, which is good in regards to the plot, because you don't want something, if you know that there is a series, you don't want the plot to be too self-contained. Of course that the first book kind of has to be self-contained, but you want it to have enough threads that it will expand for the books to follow, and it's not that just the second and the third book were just things that were thought out after the first book was published. I think the plot has some parts that are a bit obvious or predictable, but I think it's consistently good throughout the book. And an important thing, it's quite engaging. I mean, once I finished reading this book, I was definitely curious to start reading one of the novellas, The Fall, or even the second book right away. I haven't read the second book. I'm currently reading The Fall, which is the prequel, and yeah, so the plot was good enough to instigate me to read more about this world. The feel that I got about it was this, it felt like Aragon, but more mature and more complex, which is good, I guess, for adult fantasy readers, and for the ones that love Aragon, also it's a good recommendation. So overall, for the plot, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. As for characters, I'm more or less divided. The characters, again, for a first book. They seem quite promising. They seem to have the potential to become quite fully fleshed out and important in the story and becoming their own agents and not just like puppets for the story to go along. However, I felt that the main characters especially felt like they were just a representation of a type of class in a fantasy. So there's the rogue, there's the paladin, there's the magic, there's etc. So they felt a bit like stereotypical, but the other characters, they seem more fleshed out, which is funny because usually you think that the main characters are the ones that have more depth and the side characters can become a bit two-dimensional, but for me it felt a bit the other way around. But I think this is just a temporary problem. I think as I read through the series, they will probably gain more dimensionality and they will become quite important and I will link more to them. So this is just a cautionary score, and maybe if I reread I will think differently. But for now, for characters, I'm gonna give it 3 out of 5. As for world building, this is funny. I have no idea if this is true, so don't quote me on that. I can be completely wrong, but I had so many Wheel of Time feelings reading this book. I felt like Ryan Cahill really enjoyed Wheel of Time and was inspired by it to write his own world. There are some nods to Wheel of Time, at least I interpreted them as nods. There was the names of cities, names of characters, there's even the magic system a bit similar, but I don't think it's just stealing from Wheel of Time, because it has its own originality, its own quirks and their own particularities. I think Ryan Cahill just changed things while taking into account what he loved about Wheel of Time, if this is true and he loved Wheel of Time. But I really enjoyed reading this new magic system that was similar but still a bit different, and the world that is similar but still a bit different, so it gives that sense of discovery. And what I think is also a fantastic addition is the inspiration of Nordic mythology, or at least some details of Nordic mythology into this book that I find quite interesting because you don't see it every day. I think once we start exploring this world more in the future books, this will probably be the category that most easily reaches a 5 out of 5. If Ryan Cahill continues developing everything as deeply, so magic system, the world, the cultures, the people, everything, then this category will be a 5 out of 5 easily. For this book, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. As for writing style, this is where my problems start. I was having a bit of troubles with Ryan Cahill's writing style, and partially because, again, there were some similarities to Wheel of Time, but while Robert Jordan loved his descriptive prose and loved describing the landscape, dresses, the rooms, whatsoever, I also love that type of writing because it allows me to fully picture everything in my mind and how everything looks, and I enjoy that, and I know that that's not everyone's cup of tea. But if you like a more direct, more modern writing, then Ryan Cahill's is probably better for you. I think there were a couple of instances where the characters said things that felt a bit too contrasting with our world, or in the sense that it took me out of the reading really fast. It was almost a whiplash, and that, I don't know if it's a new author kind of thing or it's his own writing. I have to read more to figure that out. Hopefully it's the first and not the latter, and as he writes more and as I read his other books when he got more experience, I will be more in love with his writing style. For now, I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 5. Again, this is all just as a first read, and I really hope that in the next books this score, which is the lowest I can say, really increases by a lot because I think it has all the potential for it. As for enjoyment, despite me not enjoying the reading that much, I actually enjoyed the book quite a lot. Again, it has been a very long time since I read an epic fantasy that involves dragons and elves and dwarves, that classic epic fantasy. So when I was reading, I was just fully enjoying, and it was my escapism to this new world, even though it's not that great of a world, but it was a fantastic world. And I think this shows that even though I might not like the writing so much, or I might not like the characters so much, my enjoyment can still be quite good if, for me, the world and the plot are well constructed, which I think are the categories that I put most importance in. So for me, the enjoyment is a 4 out of 5. And so we go through all the categories. We got a 4 for plot, a 3 for characters, a 4 for world building, and then a 2 for writing style, and a 4 for enjoyment, which gives us a total score of 3.4 out of 5. I know it's not that high compared to the Goodreads score, but I think it has a lot of potential. I think if there were some tweaks into this story that allowed me to enjoy it a bit more, this would certainly have gone beyond the 4. For now, it's just a cautionary score, and I bet that the future books will have much higher. At least I hope so, because I really want to enjoy this story to the max. And who knows, maybe in a reread I would score this higher, because I would know better the characters, I would know where they would go, so I could see some foreshadowing, and yeah, so there's all that to consider. But yeah, that's all I have for today. Let me know what you think. Comment down below if you've read this book. Comment what are the categories that you agree or don't agree, and if you haven't read it, go read it, because I totally recommend it. And don't forget, subscribe, like the content, and I will be seeing you soon, alright? Deus!